course, we await to see what's going to transpire with regard to when the season starts. We expect it will be played. The question is when, whether on time, a couple of weeks late, a month late, or even in the worst-case scenario in the spring semester. One way or the other, we expect it to happen, and that's the way teams are approaching it, coaches are approaching it, players are approaching it. Joining us now to talk about that is one of the fine young coaches in our area who is entering his fourth year at his alma mater at Archbishop Shaw, former Eagle Star, former Southeastern Star, Tommy Connors. Tommy, listen, great to have you with us. I hope all is well in these unusual times.
Yeah, Ken, thanks for having me. Hope you're doing well.
Doing fine, thanks. It's all good. And how strange has it been? You get these kids together in groups right now. No one's been able to get a full team together to this point. How tough has that been, or has it been very difficult?
I mean, it is difficult. I don't think there's any question about it. You used to have in summers where 11 on 11 within your team is kind of the norm. So the planning is tough. How do you get guys good looks to get them mentally ready? Because once August gets here, we go through the whole summer thinking September 4th is going to be our first game, which that's looking highly questionable, but that's the way you prepare for it. And not knowing if you're ready or not, because you look great when coach is throwing the ball to you because you don't have a quarterback to throw it to you. But how do things look once you line up against other players who practice at different positions is still a question mark for everybody.
One of the big questions surrounding your program, and of course it's been a rebuilding effort to be certain, trying to compete at the highest level, is whether or not it was best served to remain in the storied Catholic League. Never an easy decision when you're competing with schools that have larger numbers across the board, but it's a decision that involves a lot. In this case, it's a decision that clearly is one that involves competing with like institutions and tradition and what alumni want. I guess all of that is part of it, right?
Absolutely. I think all of it comes into play, too. There's multiple ways to look at it. They redistrict every 2 years now. So, whether you choose to go up or you choose to play in your classification, which we're a smaller 4A by our actual numbers, but whether you do it or not, it isn't an unforgivable mistake in the long term, but each team deserves their best effort and to put them in the best situation to compete. So you try to make it a 2-year decision at a time, and we've been in the Catholic League. We enjoy the Catholic League. There is some pride that goes into being in the Catholic League. So for this year, we're definitely in it, and hopefully we can get all 6 games in of our district schedule.
Surely that's a big part of it, is to be able to play. Now, with regard to the building process of this program, you start from scratch. You have to build up. Numbers are a problem. Size is a problem. Skills are a problem when you're competing with the people you have to compete with. The good news is you're starting to build a good young nucleus. Your 8th, 9th grade JV have been competing quite well, and I think that's probably about to show at the varsity level, because looking at your team, you got as many as 17 kids back that have started games for you previously. That's a lot of experience.
It is. I think the only calming effect I've had through this whole off season was everybody's preparing plenty of new starters, and we started 6 freshmen in the Catholic League last year. I don't think we played against 6 freshmen combined with our entire Catholic League schedule. So returning guys with snaps and returning guys who have been part of varsity game plans and varsity practices has definitely given me a comfort level for our team as far as, if they tell us, hey, you got a game in a week. Well, the returning starters make us pretty confident that mentally we can prepare for that. And I think the physical challenge is really the bigger one as it comes up is, not so much that we're smaller. We dressed out 55 last year, taking the varsity field. This year, we'll dress out 70. So, the depth issue, I think, will always be a problem. I don't think that ever goes away. But going from 59 to 70 may get you a couple more special teams guys. May get you a couple more snaps if somebody's got to go down for a few plays here and there. So our depth's improved. The returning starters numbers, probably the best situation in the district. And hopefully, by the time we take the field, when we didn't see those guys for 2 months in March, April, and May, when we ended up seeing them again on June 8th, it was pretty cool to look around and say, man, everybody grew. So we're looking forward to it.
No doubt. And just starting with offense, the area that clearly you have to point to and say this could help carry us is offensive line. You got 4 starters back, and you've got size up front. Those are things that you really want on both ends.
Yeah. I mean, we'll return 4, and last year, the injury bug hit us like I've never seen. And whether that's due to playing a million snaps or not, I'm not sure. But we would be returning 5 starters. One of the guys ended up tearing his meniscus in the spring game last year, Jalon Williams at left tackle, and ended up missing the whole season. So we feel confident about the O-line. We feel confident returning 9 guys on defense. And if you're sticking to the offensive side, we had a freshman receiver score 5 touchdowns. We had a guy that was a sophomore who never played before, ended up starting in Isaiah Barnes, and actually ended up being an all-district kick returner when he didn't even play football his freshman year and came in as a sophomore and got that award. So I think our playmaking ability goes up better. You know, we struggled to get first downs versus a well-rounded defense last year. I think some of our athleticism, not so much on the line, but on the outside, those guys got a year older, may be able to break the tackle they couldn't break last year. Or, at the quarterback position, we got stronger arms. We had a freshman, Brandon Edinburgh, start 4 games last year. And then we also have a junior on the roster, Stephen Bankford, who's a 6-foot, 200-pound kid who can throw the ball a mile. So being able to press the defenses in different areas will be something that we haven't had for the past 3 years.
You mentioned the defense and, of course, the experience across the board with so many guys returning who have played previously. That's a real plus. There's no doubt that you'll have the ability to compete up front with the size that you have, and you've got experience in the deep as well with 5 guys that have started at defensive back.
Sure. I mean, when you look at our defensive side, we started 2 seniors last year. Dorian Lewis, who was really a difference maker at the safety position, and really was the glue. You know, he stopped long touchdowns from happening multiple times. He tore his ACL week 6. So we ended up playing 10 non-seniors, and we'll be returning those guys. So I think on the defensive side, we're much like on offense. Everybody got a year older, got a year bigger, has gone through this process before. And to me, the question mark is, last year we were outsized a little bit and sometimes out-athleticized to where I think single players, when they would do their role, everybody's got a role every single play. They may do their role, but if somebody got overpowered on a consistent basis, it's hard for a linebacker to block out while the defensive end keeps getting blasted, right? So it's hard for him to do his job. I think this year we'll have 11 guys who belong out there and can be expected to do their job by the guys around them, which really makes it easier for the other 10 to say, he's got his gap, he's got his gap, he's got his coverage. All I have to worry about is my job, and I think that makes everyone a better football player.
Unquestionably, and of course the league itself was ridiculously good last year, and it will be good again this year. The good news is you won't have to face the kind of defense Rummel threw out there last year, which was absurd. That was one of the best defenses I've seen, period. But they'll still be pretty good. Curtis, of course, is Curtis. They'll be very strong. Brother Martin has a ton of experience, especially up front in the quarterback play. Holy Cross has a lot of talent. Jesuit has got some skill this year at receiver and at quarterback. St. Augustine's a really good football team with a whole bunch of talent. I'm probably making you feel real good about right now, huh?
Yeah, it's the questions pop up more than what I know about the teams last year. We talked about my team having all these returning starters, so they'll have an idea of a varsity game and the intensity that it takes on a 7-day basis, whereas some of those other teams may be having to get guys ready for the first time. So in a way it helps us. But yeah, on the other side, some of those guys that'll be first-year starters for those other teams may be seniors, and they were ready as juniors. So the bigger question is, and those coaching staffs all have to answer it the same way I do. The position battles that I have on my team, I don't exactly know how it shakes out, and I have returning starters, but a kid who may be making a push to try to get in that starting lineup, we haven't had a chance to practice and find out. I think those teams deal with the same thing, and with however it goes, because like you were saying earlier, phase two, we're allowed 25 people in a group. So when we go to phase three, it goes to 50, but no one's been able to really position battle yet. And what that kind of leads to is usually in the summer, those things sort themselves out, and you get an idea of what you're taking into a game. Whenever we hit phase three, which potentially could be 4 weeks away from our first game, every team's got 4 weeks to figure out who to put at what position and how good can you get them in 3 or 4 weeks. I think that's going to be a huge question, and I think whatever team handles that the best, especially early on, whenever our first game is a definite advantage in that part of the year.
And people say, well, is the league going to be as good as last year, better than last year? I think it's probably close to being as good. I don't know that there's an undefeated team and state champion like Rummel was last year, but there's really good teams. And John Curtis probably goes in as maybe a favorite, although I would certainly put Brother Martin and Holy Cross in that discussion too. And you can't sleep on St. Augustine. They've got a lot of talent back, and you're never going to forget about Rummel or Jesuit. So, I mean, this is just, again, to me, it's every bit as tough as it normally is. I just don't know that there's that elite great team that would go unbeaten like we saw last year.
I agree with you. I mean, you were breaking down the district just now, and when you talked about who could win it, you mentioned 4 teams. And then added Rummel after that as a fifth. So I don't know how many districts can go into the season saying 5 teams have a shot, and then me trying to work my way into it too with my squad. We want to have a shot too. So when you think about if it's better or worse, I don't think anybody can have the defense Rummel had last year. Those guys were multi-year starters and all old. If you looked at Curtis's offense last year, I've been coaching 10 years, and it was the best offense of Curtis team I've seen entirely. So I don't know if there's an offense as good as that Curtis offense was last year. But when you look at the balance, really is the key. It almost makes you wonder, to figure out the real district champ, do we have to play 20 games? Because in basketball, at least you get to battle 2 or 3 times, and it turns into a series. Football, you put the ball down on a Friday or a Saturday, and whatever happens that day, that part of the season's gone. You don't get a retry, which is a positive and a negative, depending on how you look at it. So an undefeated team, I think you might be right. This might be a year where nobody just clean sweeps the district. And as far as when you ask me next month to put them in order and give your preseason synopsis, I'm sure I don't even know what order I'm going in yet.
Yeah, I hear you. How important would it be to get that district win? I know that's got to be on the minds of everybody involved with the program. How important would it be, and what kind of breakthrough would that be for the program?
It's when I was in high school, Coach Bain's father was kind of doing a similar thing from the perspective of went 0-10 his first year back, and then what ended up happening, and I never thought about it in high school, but we ended up beating a Brother Martin team a couple of years later. We were 2-8, but that district win really sent us good into the off season. We understood we could compete. As teenagers, that's a big part of it. Is just when you take the field, understanding that you can win, and then your body will take over because of that confidence. So I don't think you can understate how important a district win would be. We've creeped into a few of them and haven't been able to get past in that fourth quarter. So to say if a district win or not would be the big deal. I think for us it's going to be more of, I think our squad's good enough now to make a push in the fourth quarter and keep it a game deep into the game. Whereas last year, some of those third quarters, it was out of hand. And I just want to see our guys get into the fourth quarter And we preach finishing, we preach competing, we preach family and sticking together and keeping it simple, and that's the best way to come out on top. But you never really know, because you've never been in the fourth quarter of a one possession game, to make that strike. And I think this year that'll happen multiple times for us. How it plays out after that, I'm not sure, but being in the game in the fourth quarter with the ball down 3 with a couple minutes left, or with the ball up 3 with a couple minutes left, we're going to find out a bunch of answers about our program just from that standpoint of, okay, now that they're in the battle, how do we respond? And that'll help us move forward, is just, finding out that response.
Last but not least, tired of seeing people twice in a season, I'm sure. But that's the reality you find yourself in with this split.
Sure. We talk about it every year. I don't know if I've spoken to a coach who wants to keep the split long term and wants to keep, especially for the select schools where it's rare if you don't see a team twice at that point in the season. So definitely from the coaching perspective as well as the players' perspective, you want to travel, you want to see as many teams as you can. You want to size yourself up. You want to enjoy how different every week can be. So, when it comes to the select, non-select, or seeing a team twice, I think I vote with everybody. We would love to get back to just the top 32 in each division and have a real playoff.
Tommy Connors, Archbishop Shaw, thank you so much for the time tonight. Great to visit with you. Nothing but the best to the Eagles in 2020. Let's just hope we get on the field sometime soon.
Absolutely, Ken. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. That's Tommy Connors of the Shaw Eagles.